I'm Sandra Jenkins, 58 years old, and I never thought my own daughter would turn her back on me when I needed her most. After dedicating my life to my children, I found myself alone in my bedroom, recovering from a painful surgery I'd saved for years to afford. With the words, "We are not your servants," still ringing in my ears. The betrayal cut deeper than any surgical incision ever could. What happened next would change our family forever. If you're watching this, please drop a comment telling me where you're from and hit that subscribe button as I share how I discovered what my children were hiding behind my back. The summer I turned 58 was supposed to be a time of healing and family support. Instead, it became a painful awakening to truths I'd been blind to for decades. I raised my three children, Melanie, Justin, and Amelia, by myself after their father walked out when Amelia was just 2 years old. For 23 years, I worked as a high school English teacher, grading papers late into the night after preparing dinner, helping with homework, and attending their various activities. The paycheck wasn't much, but it was stable. During summers, I picked up tutoring jobs and sometimes worked at the local bookstore to make ends meet. "Mum, I got accepted to Northwestern," Melanie announced her senior year. The pride I felt was immediately tempered by panic about the tuition. But I smiled and said, "That's wonderful, honey. We'll figure it out." And figure it out I did, by refinancing the house, cutting every possible expense, and taking on weekend work. When Justin wanted to attend film school in California 2 years later, I dipped into what little retirement savings I had. It's an investment in their future, I told myself. And when Amelia decided on a private college across the country, I took out a personal loan. Throughout those years, our modest 2-story suburban home outside of Chicago gradually deteriorated. The roof developed a slow leak that I patched myself. The ancient water heater limped along, offering lukewarm showers at best. The backyard deck became a hazard zone of splintered wood and rusty nails. But college tuition textbooks and plane tickets, home for holidays, took priority. By the time all three had graduated, I was 52, and the hip pain had already started. Years of standing in classrooms, rushing up and down stairs between bells and lifting heavy boxes of textbooks had taken a toll. "You're going to need a hip replacement within 5 years," Dr. Marshall told me during a checkup. I nodded already, calculating how long it would take to save up. "Mum, I need help with my security deposit," Justin called one afternoon. He had landed his first real job at a production company in Los Angeles. "I need a bridesmaid dress for Jessica's wedding," Amelia explained when I noticed a charge on the credit card I still helped her with. "My car needs major transmission work," Melanie said during our weekly call. "Could I borrow about $4,000 to?" Each time I said yes. Each time my hip surgery fund dwindled. Each time the pain grew worse. By 56, I was walking with a cane. The school principal noticed my grimaces as I navigated the classroom. "Sandra, you need to take care of this," she said gently. "You can't keep putting it off." That evening, I called my children for a family video chat. "I've decided to get my hip replaced next summer," I announced. "The doctor says I can't delay any longer." Their responses were encouraging. "Finally, Mum," Melanie said. "You've been in pain for years." "We'll all help out," Justin promised. "You've always been there for us." "I can take some time off work," Amelia offered. Their words warmed my heart. For the next year, I saved aggressively. I cut out everything non-essential. I took on extra tutoring despite the pain. By the following summer, I had just enough saved, $38,000, to cover the surgery post-surgical care and my living expenses during recovery. 2 weeks before the scheduled procedure, I called another family meeting. By then, Melanie had moved back to Chicago with her husband Thomas, working as a marketing executive downtown. Justin was still in California, but promised to fly in for a week. Amelia, now working as a graphic designer in Milwaukee, was close enough to drive down on weekends. The recovery will take about 6 weeks, I explained. I'll need help with meals, getting to follow-up appointments, and some basic personal care initially. We've got you covered, Mum, Melanie assured me. Thomas and I can take the lead since we're closest. I've already booked my flight, Justin added. And I'll come down every weekend, Amelia promised. That night I fell asleep feeling lucky and loved. My children had grown into such responsible adults. All those sacrifices had been worth it. The evening before surgery, they came to help prepare the house. Justin moved my bed downstairs to the small guest room so I wouldn't have to navigate stairs. Melanie stocked the refrigerator. Amelia arranged my medications and post-surgical supplies in easily accessible places. Don't worry about anything, Melanie said as they prepared to leave. We'll take shifts, so someone will always be here the first couple of weeks. I hugged each of them, feeling overwhelming gratitude. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you all. If only I had known what those words would come to mean. The morning of my surgery dawned bright and clear. Justin picked me up at 6, and I noticed he kept checking his phone as he drove me to the hospital. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just some work stuff, he replied. His tone distracted. The pre-surgical preparations passed in a blur of forms of ease and reassurances from the surgical team. Dr. Marshall stopped by. Ready to get that new hip, Sandra? I nodded, pushing down my nervousness. More than ready. The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took effect was wondering if my children had arrived in the waiting room yet. I woke up hours later, groggy and disoriented. A nurse was adjusting my IV. Surgery went well, she told me with a smile. Your doctor will be by soon. I licked my dry lips. My children. Her expression faltered slightly. I believe one of them checked in earlier. Would you like me to see if they're in the waiting area? It was nearly 7 in the evening before Amelia appeared, looking rushed and apologetic. Sorry, Mum. Work was crazy today. Melanie and Justin said they'll try to come tomorrow. She stayed for about 40 minutes, mostly scrolling through her phone, while I drifted in and out of sleep. The next day, Justin came for a brief lunch visit. Melanie's dealing with a work emergency, he explained, but she'll definitely be here tomorrow. Tomorrow came, and Melanie did visit, bringing flowers and a distracted smile. How are you feeling? She asked, already checking her watch. Pretty sore, but the doctors say everything looks good, I replied, trying to hide my disappointment at her obvious impatience. The pattern continued through my 4 days in the hospital. Brief visits, excuses, no one staying longer than an hour. On discharge day, I expected all 3 to help bring me home and get me settled. Only Justin showed up 30 minutes late. Melanie had an important client meeting she couldn't reschedule, he explained as he half-heartedly helped a nurse transfer me to a wheelchair. And Amelia's car is making weird noises, so she didn't want to risk the drive. The trip home was uncomfortable, with every bump sending pain shooting through my hip. Justin sighed heavily as he helped me from the car to the front door. This is really throwing off my schedule, he muttered, thinking I couldn't hear. Inside, I was dismayed to find the house not as we had arranged. The medical supplies weren't organized as Amelia had promised. The fridge wasn't stocked with prepared meals as Melanie had said it would be. Where are the meals Melanie prepared? I asked. Justin shrugged. I think she got busy. There's probably something in the freezer. After settling me in bed with my pain medication barely within reach, Justin checked his watch. I've got to head out. I have plans tonight. Amelia said she'll come by tomorrow morning. And just like that, I was alone. That first night was terrible. My pain medication wore off around 2 in the morning, but the bottle was just far enough away that reaching it caused excruciating pain. I spent nearly an hour slowly inching my way to the edge of the bed. By the time I finally got the medication, I was sweating and trembling. Going to the bathroom was another ordeal. Using the walker was more difficult than I'd anticipated, and without someone to help steady me, I nearly fell twice. By morning, I was exhausted in pain and fighting back tears. Amelia was supposed to arrive at 8. At 9:30, she finally called. "Sorry, Mum, running late. Traffic is awful. I'll be there in about an hour." She arrived just before 11, looking annoyed rather than apologetic. "I had to cancel brunch with friends for this," she said as she helped me to the bathroom. The statement stung, but I tried to be understanding. "I appreciate you coming," I said. "I know this is disruptive to your life." "It's fine," she replied in a tone that made it clear it wasn't. While Amelia was preparing a sandwich for lunch, her phone dinged repeatedly. She left it on the kitchen counter when she went to answer the door for a package delivery. Feeling guilty but desperate to understand what was happening, I glanced at the screen. A text conversation with her siblings was visible. Melanie. "How is she doing?" Amelia. "Fine, but being super needy. Can someone else take tomorrow? I have plans." Justin. "I'm busy all weekend. Already did my time yesterday." Melanie. "This is going to be a long 6 weeks." My heart constricted painfully. Was I being too needy? I was only asking for the help they had enthusiastically promised. When Amelia returned, I didn't mention the texts. Instead, I told her I was feeling better and could probably manage more on my own. "Great," she said, visibly relieved. "So you probably don't need me to stay overnight?" I forced a smile. "I'll be fine. You've got your own life." After she left, I cried myself to sleep, feeling foolish for having expected more. They were adults with busy lives. I was being selfish. The rest of that first week followed a similar pattern. Melanie came by for an hour or two every other day, usually on her lunch break, clearly watching the clock. Justin flew back to California after just 3 days, claiming a work emergency. Amelia's weekend visits grew shorter, with her arriving late and leaving early. I told myself to be grateful for what help they could give. After all, they were doing what they could, weren't they? But as I lay alone in that bed, I couldn't help but remember all the nights I'd stayed up with them when they were sick. All the work deadlines I'd pushed to attend their events. All the times I'd dropped everything to help them move, to comfort them after breakups, to celebrate their successes. Had I raised them to be this self-centered? Or had I simply expected too much? 10 days after my surgery, I reached my breaking point. I had been alone for over 24 hours. My pain medication was running low, and I had no food within reach. My phone was across the room where Amelia had left it charging. After a painful struggle to reach my phone, I called Melanie. "Hi, Mum, I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back?" "I'm sorry to bother you," I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. "But I need some help. I'm out of food and almost out of pain medication. Could you possibly pick some things up for me after work?" A long sigh came through the phone. "I guess so. What do you need?" I kept the list simple and thanked her profusely. "I'll try to come by around 6, she said before hanging up. 6 came and went. At 7:30 I called again but got no answer. By 9 I was hungry, in pain, and feeling increasingly abandoned. Melanie finally arrived at 9:15, dropping a grocery bag on the kitchen counter with obvious irritation. "The pharmacy gave me a hard time about picking up your prescription," she said. "I had to wait forever." "Thank you for doing that," I said. "I really appreciate it." She nodded absently, already scrolling through her phone. It buzzed repeatedly with incoming messages. "Could I trouble you for a glass of water to take my medication?" I asked hesitantly. And maybe help to the bathroom. I've been waiting for hours. Something in her expression changed. Her jaw tightened and her eyes narrowed. You know what, Mum, I've had a 12-hour workday. I skipped dinner to get your groceries. I had to cancel plans with Thomas. And now you want me to wait on you hand and foot. I don't. No. Her voice rose sharply. I'm tired of this. Justin and Amelia and I have lives too. We can't just drop everything because you decided now was the time to get surgery. Shocked by her outburst, I could only stare as she continued. Do you have any idea what it's like to get 10 texts a day asking for things? Can someone bring me soup? Can someone pick up my prescription? Can someone help me to the bathroom? She mimicked my voice in a whiny tone I'd never used. Melanie. She was in full fury now. We are not your servants, she shouted. Her face flushed with anger. We have jobs and relationships and responsibilities. You act like we should just put our lives on hold for 6 weeks. The words hit me like physical blows. I felt tears welling up, but fought to keep my voice steady. I never asked you to be my servants. I asked for help after a major surgery which all of you offered enthusiastically. I've tried to be as independent as possible. Well, it's not enough, she snapped. You have no idea how disruptive this has been. Just then, the front door opened, and Justin and Amelia walked in. Apparently, they'd coordinated to come together, though no one had told me they were coming at all. What's going on? We could hear you from outside, Justin said. Mum's being impossible, Melanie said. She expects us to be at her beck and call 24/7. I was stunned by the characterization. That's not true. I just asked for help with basic necessities. Amelia rolled her eyes. Come on, Mum. You text constantly. Can someone adjust my pillow? Can someone bring me a book from upstairs? I've sent maybe 3 texts a day total, I protested, and only when I really needed help. Well, it feels like a lot more, Justin said. We're busy people. I had to take time off work to fly here. Time that you cut short by 4 days, I pointed out, feeling a surge of both hurt and anger. Because I have deadlines, he exclaimed. My career is at a critical point right now. And I'm in the middle of a huge marketing campaign, Melanie added. I've got 3 major design projects due next week, Amelia chimed in. As they listed their important commitments, something broke inside me. These were the same children who had never hesitated to ask me for help, financial and otherwise, well into their adulthood. The same children who had enthusiastically promised to support me through this recovery. I understand you have busy lives, I said quietly, but I've spent 30 years putting your needs first. I paid for your educations. I've helped you financially countless times. I've dropped everything when you needed me. All I'm asking for is 6 weeks of basic help that you all volunteered to provide. That's so manipulative, Melanie said, throwing all that in our faces. It's not manipulation to state facts, I replied, my voice trembling. I've never asked any of you for anything until now. Well, your timing is terrible, Justin said. Some of us have actual responsibilities. The implication that my needs were somehow less important than theirs was the final straw. I felt something shift inside me, a lifetime of putting others first, suddenly giving way to a long overdue realization. I see, I said, my voice suddenly calm. I think I understand now where I stand with all of you. They exchanged glances, perhaps sensing the change in my tone. Mum, we're just stressed. Amelia offered the first hint of backpedaling. No, I think you've made yourselves very clear, I replied. You see me as a burden, as someone whose needs are less important than your convenience. That's not fair, Melanie protested, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I think it's perfectly fair, I said. And I think you should all leave now. Mum, you can't be serious, Justin said. You need help. Yes, I do, but not from people who resent giving it. I'll figure something out. They stood there, seemingly shocked that their usually accommodating mother was standing her ground. We'll talk tomorrow when everyone's calmer, Melanie said, already heading for the door. The three of them left together, a united front against their unreasonable mother. As the door closed behind them, I finally let the tears come. Alone in my recovery bed, I faced the hardest truth of my life. The children I had sacrificed everything for saw me only as an inconvenience. That night was the longest of my life. The physical pain in my hip was nothing compared to the emotional agony of betrayal. I lay awake replaying decades of memories in a new, harsh light. I remembered Melanie's college graduation, where I'd stood proudly despite having worked a double shift the day before. I'd spent my last dollars on a modest celebration dinner and given her a card with a check I could barely afford. I thought about the time Justin's car broke down in his second year of film school. I'd drained my emergency fund to wire him $3,000 for repairs, postponing needed dental work for myself. I recalled driving 14 hours to help Amelia move into her first apartment after college, spending 3 days cleaning, unpacking, and stocking her kitchen before driving back in time for Monday classes. Were these the same people who now couldn't spare a few hours a day to help me through a temporary medical situation? With shaking hands, I reached for my laptop. I needed to understand what had happened to my loving children. Had I imagined their promises to help? Had I misunderstood their commitments? I opened my email and found the family thread from 2 months prior, when we'd discussed the surgery plans. There it was in writing, their enthusiastic offers of support. I'll coordinate everything, Mum. Thomas and I will make sure you have everything you need. Melanie. I've already requested 2 weeks off work after your surgery date. Don't worry about a thing. Justin. I'll be there every weekend and can work remotely on Mondays and Fridays if you need extra help. Amelia. Not my imagination, not misunderstanding. Clear promises they had chosen to abandon. Out of curiosity, I opened our family group chat, a text thread I rarely checked since they primarily used it to communicate with each other. Scrolling back a few weeks, my heart sank as I read their messages. Justin. Who's on mum duty this weekend? I'm trying to plan a trip to San Diego. Amelia. I was there last weekend. It's Melanie's turn. Melanie. Can't do Saturday, have a work event. Can one of you cover Justin? This is getting old fast. 2 more weeks of this. Amelia. At least we're not paying for a nurse. That would cost a fortune. Melanie. True. Small price to pay considering how much she's helped us financially. Justin. Still annoying, though. She asks for help with every little thing. Amelia. Just 4 more weeks. We can handle it. Melanie. Speaking of handling things, who's going to tell her we can't come for her birthday next month? We'll all be in Cancun. My birthday? They were planning a vacation together during my birthday and hadn't even told me. I scrolled further and found pictures of resort options, discussions of flight prices, all dated weeks before my surgery. They had planned this getaway, knowing full well it overlapped with both my recovery period and my birthday. With trembling fingers, I opened my banking app. Years of teacher's habits had made me meticulous about financial records. I pulled up my transaction history and started categorizing expenses related to my children over just the past 2 years. $4. $500 to Melanie for her car repairs. $2. $800 to Justin for rent. When he was between projects, $3,700 toward Amelia's credit card debt, $1,000, $200 for Melanie's emergency dental work, $950 for Justin's professional camera equipment, $1,800 for Amelia's therapy sessions her insurance wouldn't cover. The list went on and on, nearly $23,000 in just 24 months. Money I could have used for my own needs, including this surgery I'd postponed for years while in constant pain. As the first light of dawn filtered through the blinds, I made a decision that was both heartbreaking and liberating. I would no longer be the only one giving in this relationship. It was time for my children to grow up, and for me to stop enabling their entitled behavior. I carefully made my way to the bathroom, took my medication, and managed to prepare a simple breakfast. The physical tasks were painful and exhausting, but there was a strange empowerment in knowing I could manage if I had to. Around noon, all three children arrived together, as if presenting a united front. They walked in without knocking, looking sheepish, but not particularly apologetic. "We brought lunch," Melanie announced, holding up a bag from a nearby sandwich shop. I was sitting in the recliner, having painfully made my way there earlier. I looked at my children, really looked at them, and saw for the first time not the babies I had raised, but the adults they had chosen to become. "Thank you for coming," I said calmly, "but I need you all to leave." They exchanged confused glances. "Mum, we're sorry about yesterday," Amelia began. "We were all just stressed." "I understand," I replied, "but I've made a decision. I'm going to hire professional help for my recovery." "That's ridiculous," Justin scoffed. "Do you know how expensive that is?" "I do," I said. "It will cost most of what I have saved. But unlike family professional caregivers, won't resent helping me use the bathroom or reaching my medication." "Mum, we don't resent," Melanie started. "Please don't lie to me," I interrupted gently. "I read your group chat messages. I know exactly how you all feel about helping me." Their faces registered shock, then embarrassment, then defensiveness. "You went through our private messages," Justin accused. "No, I read messages in a group chat that I'm part of, and I'm glad I did. It was enlightening." "Those messages weren't meant to hurt you," Amelia said weakly. "That almost makes it worse," I replied. "Because it means that's how you genuinely talk about me when you think I won't find out." There was an uncomfortable silence. "So what now?" Melanie finally asked. "Now I need some time without you. I've called a home health agency, and they're sending someone this afternoon. They'll be helping me for the remainder of my recovery." "That's a waste of money," Justin protested. "It's my money to waste," I said firmly. "Just like it was my money to give you when you needed help with rent or camera equipment, or any of the other thousands of dollars I've provided over the years." Their expressions told me they hadn't expected this conversation to take this turn. "That's not fair," Melanie said. "I agree," I replied. "It wasn't fair for me to work 3 jobs to put you through Northwestern. It wasn't fair for me to drain my retirement to fund Justin's film school. It wasn't fair for me to take out a loan for Amelia's education. But I did those things out of love, never expecting anything in return, except basic human decency when I finally needed help." "So you're kicking us out?" Justin asked incredulously. "I'm asking for space. I need to heal. Not just my hip, but my heart. And I can't do that with people who see me as a burden." "How long?" Amelia asked quietly. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "That depends on all of us. But for now, yes, I need you to leave." They gathered their things in awkward silence. At the door, Melanie paused. "Will you at least let us know you're okay?" "Yes," I promised. "And I hope someday you'll understand why I'm doing this." As the door closed behind them, I felt an overwhelming mixture of grief and relief. The grief was for the relationships I thought we had. The relief was for finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of putting everyone else first. The home health agency sent Maria that afternoon. A woman in her early 40s with a kind smile and efficient manner, she helped me bathe, changed my bedding, prepared meals for the next few days, and organized my medications without a single complaint. "I'll be back tomorrow at 9, she said as she prepared to leave. "Do you need anything else before I go?" "No, thank you. You've been wonderful." She paused at the door. "Family situations can be complicated," she said gently. "I've seen it many times in this job." I nodded, feeling tears threaten again. "But you deserve proper care, Mrs. Jenkins. Everyone does." Those simple words of validation meant more than she could know. Over the next week, Maria came for 4 hours each day. We developed a comfortable routine, and I found myself looking forward to her visits, not just for the physical help, but for the conversation. Unlike my children, she seemed genuinely interested in my life stories. "You were a teacher for 30 years, she asked one morning while helping me with physical therapy exercises. "My sister is a teacher. It's such important work." "I loved it," I told her. "Challenging but rewarding." "Your children were lucky to have a mother so dedicated to education." The comment stung, but I managed a smile. "Thank you." As we worked together, I learned about Maria's life. Her 2 teenagers, her night classes toward a nursing degree, her parents in Mexico, whom she supported financially. "It's hard sometimes," she confessed, "especially with school. But my children help a lot at home. My son cooks dinner 3 nights a week so I can study." The contrast with my own situation wasn't lost on me. By the end of the second week post-surgery, I was moving much better with a walker. Dr. Marshall was pleased with my progress during my follow-up appointment. "You're healing well," he said. "Keep up with the exercises and we'll have you on a cane in another 2 weeks." Maria drove me to and from the appointment without complaint, waiting patiently during the hour-long visit. "My family should be doing this," I thought with a pang of sadness. That evening after Maria left, I called my sister Patty. We hadn't been close for years. My fault, I realized now. I had always been too busy with my children to nurture other relationships. "Sandra," her voice registered surprise. "Is everything okay?" "Not really," I admitted. And for the first time, I poured out the whole story: the surgery, my children's behavior, my decision to hire help. "I'm coming over," she said immediately. "I can be there tomorrow." "You don't have to do that," I protested. "I want to. That's what sisters are for." The next afternoon, Patty arrived with a suitcase and a determination to help. She settled into my spare room and immediately began taking care of things Maria couldn't during her daily visits. "Your gutters are a disaster," she announced after inspecting the house. "And when was the last time anyone cleaned the refrigerator?" It was strange having my younger sister taking charge, but also comforting. Unlike my children's reluctant assistance, Patty's help came with genuine care. One evening, as we shared tea in the living room, she broached the subject we'd both been avoiding. "Sandra, I need to say something, and it might be hard to hear." I braced myself. "Go ahead." "You've always put those kids first. Before yourself, before Dad and Mum when they needed you, before our relationship. Everything in your life has revolved around them since the day Melanie was born." The assessment was painfully accurate. "I know," I admitted. "And look how they've repaid that dedication. They've taken, and the one time you needed them, they couldn't be bothered to help." They're busy with their own lives, I said automatically, the excuse I'd been making for them for weeks. Patty fixed me with a stern look. Stop that. Everyone's busy. I run my own business, but I'm here. Maria has 2 jobs and is in school, but she shows up every day. Being busy is no excuse for abandoning your mother after surgery. Put that way, it was hard to argue. When did you last do something just for you? She asked. Before the surgery, I mean. I thought hard but couldn't remember. Every spare dollar, every free moment had gone to my children or my students for decades. That's what I thought, Patty said, seeing my struggle. It's time to start living for Sandra now. Over the following days, Patty helped me establish new routines focused on my recovery and well-being. She brought over photo albums, and we reminisced about our childhood. She introduced me to streaming services I'd never had time to explore, and helped me find shows I enjoyed. My children sent occasional text messages during this time, clearly expecting things to blow over. Hope you're feeling better. Let us know when we can visit. Melanie. How's the hip, need anything? Justin. Thinking of you. Miss you. Amelia. I responded politely but briefly, not yet ready to reopen those doors. With Patty's encouragement, I also reached out to old friends I had lost touch with. My former colleague Diane was delighted to hear from me and came over for coffee. We reconnected as if no time had passed, and she invited me to join her book club, Once You're Mobile Again. We meet once a month, she explained. Nothing too demanding, but it's a lovely group of women. You'd fit right in. For the first time in years, I felt myself opening to possibilities beyond my role as mother and teacher. 4 weeks after surgery, I was using a cane and regaining independence. Patty reluctantly returned to her life in Cleveland, but not before extracting a promise. You will not go back to putting those kids first. She made me swear. You will continue building your own life with or without them in it. I promised and meant it. Maria reduced her visits to 3 times weekly, focused mainly on physical therapy support and heavier household tasks. During one of her visits, she noticed me working on a notebook. What are you writing? Just some thoughts, I said. Actually, it's a budget. I'm planning some home improvements I've put off for too long. She smiled approvingly. Good for you. It's never too late to invest in your own comfort. As I continued healing physically, I worked on my emotional recovery through daily therapy sessions via video call. Dr. Levine helped me recognize patterns I'd established decades ago. You equated love with sacrifice, she observed. But real love shouldn't require constant self-denial. I thought I was being a good mother, I said. There's a difference between supporting your children and enabling dependence, she replied. It sounds like you did too much of the latter. These sessions were painful but necessary. Like physical therapy for my hip, the emotional work hurt but made me stronger. 6 weeks into my recovery, just as I was establishing my new normal, Patty called with disturbing news. Sandra, have you looked at your bank statements recently? Not for a couple of weeks. Why? I hate to ask this, but is there any chance one of your kids has access to your accounts? My stomach dropped. Melanie has my online banking password. I gave it to her years ago when I was traveling and needed her to pay a bill for me. Why? You should check your savings account, Patty said grimly. I hung up and immediately logged into my bank account. What I saw made me physically ill. There had been multiple withdrawals from my savings account over the past 3 years, small enough not to immediately raise alarms, but frequent enough to add up to nearly $15,000. With shaking hands, I pulled up the transaction details. Each withdrawal had been made online using my credentials. The timing of many coincided with luxury purchases Melanie had shown off: designer bags, expensive shoes, a weekend trip to New York. She's been stealing from me, I whispered to the empty room. But that wasn't all. Further investigation revealed my credit card had been used for numerous online purchases shipped to Justin's address in California. Electronics clothing subscription services, over $7,000 worth in the past year alone. Purchases I had noticed but dismissed as billing errors that I was too busy to dispute. And in my email, I found messages from Amelia to her siblings discussing plans for her destination wedding, a wedding she had told me would be small and inexpensive, but that actually involved an elaborate ceremony in Bali with hints about how to get Mum to cover the flights for the family. The evidence was overwhelming and heartbreaking. My children hadn't just abandoned me in my time of need. They had been systematically taking advantage of me financially for years. With a clarity born of betrayal, I made 3 phone calls, one to my bank to change all my passwords and access credentials, one to my credit card company to report fraudulent charges, and one to all 3 of my children, asking them to come over the following evening for an important discussion. They arrived together again, looking wary, but still confident in their ability to manage their difficult mother. "Thank you for coming," I said, sitting straight in my armchair, my cane nearby. "I've made some discoveries I need to discuss with you." "What kind of discoveries?" Melanie asked cautiously. "Financial ones," I replied, keeping my voice steady as I placed printed statements on the coffee table. "Melanie, would you like to explain the 26 withdrawals from my savings account made with my online credentials? Or Justin? Perhaps you can tell me why Amazon has been delivering packages to your address, paid for with my credit card. Or Amelia, you could share the details of how you plan to fund family flights to Bali for your wedding." The color drained from their faces. "Mum, I can explain," Melanie began. "Those withdrawals were temporary. I was going to pay you back. For 3 years of withdrawals, without ever mentioning them to me. You always said we could count on you for financial help," Justin argued. "I just didn't want to bother you with small purchases." "Small purchases that added up to thousands of dollars," I corrected. "The wedding plans were just ideas," Amelia insisted. "Nothing was final. Except the date, location, and guest list, according to your emails." They began talking over each other, excuses blending with justifications and the occasional half-hearted apology. But underlying it all was a fundamental belief that they were entitled to my money, that my resources were essentially theirs for the taking. I let them talk themselves out before responding. "I've spent decades supporting you, emotionally, practically, and financially," I said when they finally fell silent. "I've given you everything I could, and in return, you've taken advantage of my generosity, betrayed my trust, and abandoned me when I needed you." "That's not fair," Melanie protested. "We've been busy, but we haven't abandoned you. You promised specific help with my recovery and then treated it as an inconvenience. You planned a vacation during my recovery period without telling me, and apparently you've been stealing from me for years. How would you characterize that behavior?" None of them had an answer. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. Yeah. "Melanie, you will repay every cent you took from my savings account. Justin, you will reimburse me for all unauthorized credit card charges. Amelia, you will plan a wedding you can afford without my financial assistance, and all of you will receive no further financial support from me until these debts are repaid." "Mom, you can't be serious," Justin said, looking stunned. "I've never been more serious," I replied. "I've enabled your entitled behavior for too long, and that stops today." "So you're cutting us off because we couldn't drop everything for 6 weeks?" Melanie asked angrily. "No. I'm establishing boundaries because you've demonstrated that you don't respect me, my resources, or my needs. There's a difference." "This is so selfish," Amelia said, tears forming. "After everything we've done for you." I almost laughed at the absurdity of the statement. Please tell me what exactly you've done for me that compares to what I've given you. Their silence was telling. I love you all very much, I said, softening my tone slightly. But love doesn't mean allowing myself to be taken advantage of. I deserve better than that. So what now? Justin asked, a hint of fear finally breaking through his indignation. Now you leave. You think about your actions. You make arrangements to repay what you've taken. And maybe when you're ready to have an adult relationship based on mutual respect, rather than what you can get from me, we can rebuild. You're choosing money over your own children, Melanie accused a last desperate attempt at manipulation. No, I corrected gently. I'm choosing self-respect over enabling. There's a world of difference. When they left this time, their anger was tinged with something new, the uncertainty of people who had suddenly lost their safety net. It was painful to see, but also necessary. They were adults, and it was time they fully understood what that meant. The weeks that followed were a mixture of grief and growth. I mourned the relationships I thought I had with my children, while creating a new life for myself. Maria continued coming twice weekly, now more as a companion than a caregiver. My physical recovery progressed well, and by the 2-month mark, Dr. Marshall pronounced me fully healed. You've made remarkable progress, Sandra, he said during my final follow-up appointment. Both physically and, if I may say so, emotionally. You look happier than I've seen you in years. He wasn't wrong. Despite the pain of the situation with my children, I had discovered a new sense of freedom. I joined Diane's book club and found myself eagerly reading and discussing literature again, something I had loved but abandoned due to lack of time. I reconnected with other former colleagues and established a weekly lunch group. With Patty's encouragement, I began making the home improvements I'd postponed for decades: a new roof, a reliable water heater, fresh paint in colors I loved rather than what was practical for a house with children. I turned Justin's old bedroom into a reading nook with a comfortable chair and good lighting. Most importantly, I started planning for my own future. I met with a financial advisor who helped me establish a retirement plan with what remained of my savings after paying Maria and the home repairs. It's never too late to start investing in yourself, she assured me. My children's responses to my boundaries varied. 2 weeks after our confrontation, Amelia called tearful and seemingly genuine in her remorse. I'm so sorry, Mum, she said. I've been thinking about everything you said, and you're right. We've been awful. Thank you for saying that, I replied, cautious but hopeful. I've scaled back the wedding plans, she continued. Something small that Mark and I can afford ourselves. And I'm sending you a check this week toward what I owe for the credit card charges. It was a start. A small one, but significant. Justin took longer. A month after our confrontation, he sent an email. Mum, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I didn't want to admit how selfish I've been. I've set up a payment plan to repay everything I charged to your card. Can we talk sometime? We arranged a video call where he seemed genuinely contrite. I don't know why I thought it was okay to use your card, he said. I guess I always saw your resources as extensions of my own. That's an honest observation, I acknowledged, and the first step toward change. Melanie was the most resistant. She sent a check for $2,000 with a note that read, "Only first installment." No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. But even that represented progress, a recognition, however grudging, of her obligation to make amends. 3 months after my surgery, Amelia came to visit. She arrived with a homemade meal and an attitude of genuine helpfulness. The house looks amazing, she remarked, noticing the changes. I love the new wall color. Thank you. It's the color I always wanted, but thought was impractical with children. She winced slightly at the implication, but nodded. You deserved nice thing even when we were growing up, she said quietly. We just never thought about that. During her visit, she helped with some garden work I had been postponing, staying until the job was finished rather than watching the clock. When she left, our hug felt authentic in a way it hadn't in years. Justin visited a month later, spending a weekend helping install bookshelves in my new reading room. We had several honest conversations about the past and possibilities for the future. I took a financial management course, he told me over dinner. Made me realize how much I've relied on you as a backup plan my entire adult life. That stops now. I'm proud of you, I said, and meant it. Melanie took the longest to come around. 5 months after the confrontation, she finally requested a meeting. I've been angry, she admitted as we sat in my newly renovated kitchen. I felt entitled to your help because of how much you've always given us. When you suddenly set boundaries, it felt like rejection. I understand that, I said. But boundaries aren't rejection. They're necessary for healthy relationships. I'm beginning to see that, she replied. Thomas and I have been in couples counseling, and a lot of what the therapist says reminds me of what you told us about respect and mutual support. It wasn't a full apology, but it was a beginning. By the 6-month mark, a new family dynamic was emerging, one based on mutual respect rather than one-sided giving. We began having Sunday dinners together once a month, with each adult contributing to the meal preparation and cleanup. My children started sharing their successes and challenges without immediately asking for help or money. When Amelia and Mark had their modest wedding ceremony in a local park, I attended as a guest, not as the financier. Justin's latest film project was completed with grants he had applied for himself, not with my credit card. Melanie and Thomas bought a new car with their own savings, not a loan from me. Small steps, but meaningful ones. As for me, I discovered that life at 58 could be fuller and richer than I had imagined. I began volunteering at the local library, joined a walking group for hip replacement patients, and even started dating, something I hadn't considered in decades. Nothing serious, just coffee with a retired Professor Diane introduced me to. But it was another step in building a life centered on my own happiness rather than others' needs. The most valuable lesson I learned through this painful journey was that true love, whether for children, parents, or oneself, must include respect and boundaries. Self-sacrifice without limits doesn't serve anyone. It creates entitled children and resentful parents. I still love my children deeply. That never changed. But our relationship has transformed from one of dependence to one of mutual respect. They are learning to see me as a person with needs and rights of my own, not just as mum who exists to serve their interests. And I am learning that it's never too late to start putting myself first sometimes, that doing so doesn't make me selfish, but actually models healthier relationships for the next generation. If you're watching this and recognize yourself in my story, whether as the giver or the taker, know that patterns can change at any age. Boundaries can be established. Respect can be learned. Relationships can heal. What relationship in your life needs healthier boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe if my story has resonated with you. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and dignity. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength in your own.